Hello, friends, and welcome once again to the weekly High with LHD show. We have with us today my colleague L. Subramaniam, better known as Subu, who co hosts the show, and Anurag Agarwal, who heads San Francisco SMB IT market research and industry analyst firm called Techaisle. Now, Anurag is a veteran market research executive and was earlier the COO of AIY Partners. He was a senior VP with Knowledge Networks and was a VP with Gartner. Interestingly, he began his market research career with IDC, where he was responsible for launching IDC's quarterly tracker research. So you see, he has got a whole spectrum of market research around him, a very interesting kind of portfolio. But before we get talking with Anurag, as is the format of the show, we will be talking a little about the newsworthy developments, newsworthy tech developments of this week. So if you see, the first news item we see is Sophia and four other humanoid robots will be mass produced by the end of the year, according to Hanson Robotics. These four models would start rolling out of their factories in the first half of 21 according to a Reuters report. Data Privacy Day was celebrated on January 28th. According to the UN, 128 of 194 countries have passed the legislation. Of these, 10% of the countries have drafted legislation, but 19% have no legislation at all. If you look at Apple's take on privacy, CEO Tim Cook recently said that algorithms manipulate users. Well, there's nothing new in that. We all know exactly how apps work. But the interesting part is coming from Cook. It's an interesting statement saying that the apps industry collects $227 billion in revenue each year. Interestingly, Apple will soon roll out its app tracking transparency measures. These will prompt users when apps want to access advertisements on Apple's operating system. Mind you, it's not on Android. And Google said it is going to work how to comply with these requests. It's interesting out there. World Economic Forum has launched the Global AI Action Alliance. This brings together a group of more than 100 companies. And the idea is to sort of promote transparent AI because you need explainable AI algorithms that can explain why they have taken this particular action. According to PwC, AI could contribute more than $15 trillion to the world economy by 2030. And last but not the least, since Anurag is also, I think Anurag knows the person quite well. Subu, Sridhar Vembu. So it was just a fitting recognition that he was awarded India's fourth highest civilian honor, the Padma Shri on Republic Day. I think that was quite development. Let's start with you, Anurag. Are you impressed with Sophia? You deal primarily with the SMB channels and the channel market as such. But what is your impression of these smart humanoids? I know they're not in the league of artificial general intelligence or artificial super intelligence or anything like that. What's your take?
So I think it's important to understand as to what's the objective of these humanoids, right? One is to have, two aspects of it. One is how you can be deployed in the business sector, which could be in more ways than one, which you talk about manufacturing or financial services or healthcare or even retail, right? Those are the sectors. But the more important thing is, can they be useful to be deployed within the households, within the consumer segment in an as a service model? Obviously, they'll be frightfully expensive to kind of own and buy by individual households. But I think it's a step in the right direction. But a lot of work still needs to be done in terms of what this humanoid is able to capture the information from the end customers or end users or in the environment that they are operating in, whether it comes to data or privacy and what's the level of security out there. So I think there are still so many unanswered questions, and only the deployment and the adoption will start to tell us what the learnings are for now and for the future.
Anurag, you made a very interesting statement saying, talking about the cost, and obviously that was expected because you deal with the kind of sector that doesn't have too many resources on hand to invest in these kind of technologies. But interestingly, these robots can also be leased. I think there are some companies which you are well aware of that also lease these robots on an hourly basis. Does that actually work on the factory floors? Because I mean, from
So,
reports, it seems to be working.
so robots in general have been extremely advantageous for the business segment, right? I mean, you look at Amazon's warehouses, right? You cannot walk into an Amazon warehouse. So for that matter, any very large, 3 or 4, US football size fields, you start to look at that, is the robots that are doing most of the work, right? And then there are so many useful use cases, whether it be in the US or Europe or even in some of the Asia Pacific countries, where your goods, your whatever you've ordered online are being delivered through robots, right? Within a defined area. So there are many different aspects of it, right? So I don't think the cost is a going to be an inhibitor. It's what are the use cases and how those use cases can be easily applied to my segment. For example, in a retail store, you know, how many times you walk into a retail store where you are trying to look for a sales clerk or somebody who can answer your questions, and think about it. A robot like Sophia can walk up to you and say, hey, looks like you are looking for something. Do you need any help? Can I help you, right? And we have seen that, and I have interacted with many companies who are using robots in big malls and so on and so forth. So there are many different use cases. I don't think cost is the main inhibitor. I think the issue will be what's the use case, who can manage it, how they will be managed, what does the data collection look like, and how that data will be used.
So,
Yeah.
Anurag, here is where I have a question for you. The question is that, yes, the use cases are going to be terribly critical, and we also have to look at the data privacy and how they collect data and what kind of use the data is going to be put to, and so on and so forth. But from a purely Indian context, where it's a labor-intensive economy, and the cost of labor is really not prohibitive, do you think that could be an inhibitor for the adoption of Sophia in India or India-like
Yes,
countries?
yes and no, but I don't think we should look at look at robots as a cost arbitrage issue, right? Because I think India is one of the countries where there is tremendous adoption of digitization. I think we should look at it from that perspective. When you have, coming back to my retail example, right? When you have so much of emphasis going on, on competition between Amazon or Flipkart or, slash Walmart, and then you have the Reliance stores and all that. There are so many different opportunities which are there. And what will happen is that that the labor which is currently doing the manual labor could be easily deployed or could be easily trained to do something else, a lot more upskilling, right? Which kind of gives them more uh, salary per hour type of thing. I think that's the way we should think about it in terms of the positive impact of robots like this.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, it's pretty interesting because Subbu, specifically talking about the India market, you have these Roomba robots that are
Yep.
being used by households out here. You have a company that is Grey Orange, which is very well known throughout the world for its collaborative robots. So a lot of human machine collaboration is on with robots on the shop floor in Maruti, Hero Honda, ABB, Siemens, and all
Yep.
these other
Yep.
other companies, right? Even in India as we speak. So there is a lot of this stuff. And also, interestingly, I think we need not look at, basically, whenever we talk about robots, we are thinking about hardware, we are thinking about androids. But there are also efforts like, I know Pranav Mistri's Neon, for instance, which was touted as the world's first artificial human, which is basically a software. You just had a kind of a projection of a screen, and it runs on an AI engine. And actually, it has been implemented, or rather, it is being implemented in banks in Japan and Korea, etc. And he has plans to get it out soon in India, because I was partly involved in that project, so I know about it. And we had launched it at the Consumer Electronics Show in 2019. And there are a lot of these kind of projects that are being used in the fashion industry and other kind of
Sure.
retail, especially, as Anurag pointed out. But other than the Boston Dynamics, the dancing robots, and all this, so there's a lot of work, as we all know. Let's segue a bit into the data privacy. So, International Data Privacy Day on January 20th. And apps, I think every app, for that matter of fact, collects humongous amounts of data. Is it a Subbu? Let me ask you, because you talk a lot about cybersecurity and privacy and all that kind of stuff. Uh, are you seeing? Is it advantages today with all the kind of moves that Tim Cook is making and Apple is making? Is it better to have an iPhone as opposed to an Android? Would you feel that's the case, or
Well,
everybody is the same?
I think, look, there is a lot of rhetoric on data privacy. Clearly, the urgency of the situation has been felt. And the fact that, Cook is talking about allowing the Apple users to, do the settings is, enough evidence of the fact that it is a serious issue. However, the jury is still out there, because I think the amount of data that is being collected, I don't think the problem is about the data being collected. Okay, that's one dimension. The other dimension is what is being done with the data. As a user, do I know that my data is being collected? Probably in the fine print, I have tick marked somewhere, and I think my assent has been there. Two, are the guys who are collecting my data, purveying my data, and making money and not telling me? The answer to that is absolutely yes, they are doing that. Three, do I know where the data is being sent to? The answer is no, I don't know. So I think you have, when you look at data privacy, you got to look at all of them. And I've been arguing this for the longest time, that I think that whether it's the United States or India or any of those countries which don't have legislation, I think for them the best place to look for in terms of data privacy and stringency is probably Europe. Because Europe has done enormous amount of work, and today you actually see tech companies very wary of the data privacy laws in Europe, because not only are they putting in a law, they're implementing the law, and they're telling the companies that we are going to crack the whip. So it is all these three dimensions which are important as far as the data privacy is concerned, and not just the rhetoric. We'll get there someday, but today, are we there? Not at all. Absolutely not.
Anurag, your thoughts? Anurag, can you hear
Yeah,
us? Your
I
thoughts on
can.
this?
Okay, yes, I did not hear that you were asking me a question, because I think you can fade it in and
It's
out. So I think the important point is, I mean, he's right. I mean, all those points which he has raised, but the question really starts is what data is being collected about myself, right? I think that's where it all starts. I don't think the users have a fundamental issue as to what, if the data is being collected. But again, it says what data is being collected. You use Google Maps or use Apple Map, it is collecting the data as to where you are located, right? And if you have signed into Google Maps, then it knows that Anurag Agarwal is sitting in San Jose and is wanting to go to a store which is 5 miles ago, right? 5 miles away. So it is collecting that data, and the user does not have any problem in doing that because the user itself is getting some kind of a service back, right? But I think the problem arises when the user is not aware as to what data is being collected and how it is being shared, right? We saw the recent backlash when Facebook announced that, hey, there is some WhatsApp data that will be shared with Facebook, right? It was a valid concern, but then Facebook had to come out with explanations and explanations as to what it is being collected, but the users are still not convinced, which is why the WhatsApp delete started the process, right? But at the same time, people are not really saying, okay, WhatsApp is providing me a great service. I should be able to do something about it, right? And that's why you have places like, DuckDuckGo, or, that website is
Correct.
working so well. It has gone up to, it has seen a tremendous growth rate as compared to Google's search engine. But people still use Google. So I think the issue is, I mean, Europe is there. Then you have California Privacy Act is there, but there are very sporadic initiatives, and the users alone cannot do anything about it. It's some level of legislation is required to be able to make sure that the privacy, the data that the user is sharing with the apps, the software are protected.
Yeah, if you remember, we started the whole conversation with those points. According to the UN, 128 of the 194 countries have, some sort of said that they'll have legislation, but of them, I think 19% have drafted some sort of a legislation. No, 10% have drafted some sort of a legislation. 19% have no legislation at all. So we do have that problem. And speaking about privacy, obviously you do have alternatives. As you said, DuckDuckGo was for the Google or whatever browser you want to use, or you could use a virtual private network, a VPN, or there are other alternatives, whether it's a Telegram, whether it's a Signal. But as Subbu and me, we have discussed this on earlier episodes also, they don't have the network effect. So that could, impact businesses, basically.
Yeah, it is absolutely important, right? The network effect is extremely important. They don't have it. That's why the users want to use it. I mean, you started off by talking about Sridhar Vembu, right? One of the success factors of Zoho is that they take privacy very, very seriously. They have their own data centers everywhere. They don't capture any information. If they capture any information, then they tell you exactly what information is being captured. I think that makes tremendous sense.
True. And we'll come to Sridhar Vembu in a bit. But the interesting part is, Subbu, Anurag, both of you, have you seen the Facebook's latest revenue figures?
No, I'm not.
85. So 85 billion in revenue. I mean, 86 billion approximately, 2020 revenue. Um, I think it was around 75 or something in 2019. But the interesting part is it has got about 1 point, if my memory serves me right, around 1.8 billion daily active users, about 2.8 billion monthly active users. And of course, there's a whole category called family active users. So the amount of data that it captures between Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, I think these are many countries put together. So when we're talking about privacy, when we're talking about
Yeah. So I think the issue is is a is is for an organization like Facebook, it's about monetization of your
Right.
data, right? You use Amazon, right? Amazon knows everything about your buying habit, what you have browsed, how many family members, and everything, right? But you have implicit trust in Amazon because it is giving you that service. For organizations like Facebook or similar other social media or uh, you know uh, solutions out there, is that you're giving them information for free and they are able to monetize that data. And how they are able to monetize it, where it is being shared, and when you have news that comes out of Cambridge Analytica and all those other things, then you do not know what other hidden volcanoes are out there, and that creates a problem. But then also we have to think about it is, does this create some kind of a bias in the system, right? And that goes back to the fact that, hey, when the humanoid is there or the Sophia is there, right? How will Sophia deal with an Asian versus a non-Asian, right? Versus a black versus a white, right? So those are the elements which are there, which we have to really also address.
So, Subbu, basically, there's nothing like a free lunch, right?
Well, there's never been anything like a free lunch. I mean, come on. We know from the time when Microsoft, was the king of this hill. And this, I mean, so here is my problem. My problem is that, there is this caveat emptor. If the user believes that there is something called a free lunch, then he's got a problem. If we believe that WhatsApp is going to be extremely beneficial and it's going to be free always, and they're not going to make money, we are wrong. They will make money. Facebook will make money, and that's what they're, as a corporation, there are. I think the only issue is, do I know what data is being taken, and do I know where it's going? These are, to me, these are two key issues which are yet unsolved. I mean, no matter what Tim Cook says, the fact of the matter is that I still don't know where my data is going. I know it's intrusive, and like Anurag said, I'm getting some value. As long as I'm getting some value back, I'm okay. But then if I'm not seeing the value and I see that you are monetizing it, and I don't know what else you know about me and you're monetizing, then I have a problem.
I think the good part about all these debates and these kind of legislations moves, basically, at least it ensures that the pressure is on these companies. They'll
Yeah.
simply go berserk. They'll be running helter skelter, and we'll be running helter skelter. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to strike that balance somewhere. Yes, we do understand that there's nothing called a free lunch, but at the same time, where do these, how much of introspection are the big tech really doing is anybody's guess. And
Yeah.
let's leave that topic for now. Let's segue into the kind of a related topic, which Anurag actually did allude to when he spoke about algorithms, or Sophia, about the bias within algorithms. So now you have the World Economic Forum has come out with a global AI alliance, multi-stakeholder, collaboration of about more than 100 companies, which I think all the top tech companies are there. And this is one of the many such moves that has happened over a period of time. So that's also keeps the pressure on. Anurag, you're dealing with the SMB, with those kind of markets, these kind of alliances. What is the kind of impact are you seeing? Forget the impact of this particular thing. Let's talk about AI adoption in the SMB market, and something that you have done a lot of extensive research in that area.
So, so here is the thing about AI and ML, right? Firms do not go to IT suppliers and say they want to buy AI, right?
Right.
They go and say they can go and say, I want to buy CRM or servers or hyper-converged infrastructure solutions, so on and so forth. Or I want to buy PCs. But AI is one of those categories that you say, all right, they will go to suppliers with a business problem. And if the answer is AI, they are willing to adopt it, right? So there is a lot of innovation at the edge that is happening within the SMB customers, right? And AI and analytics have become an integral part of that edge adoption, right? But what we are seeing is that solutions with AI embedded within themselves are finding the most acceptance, such as analytics, customer experience, marketing, fraud detection, HR and recruiting, process automation of repetitive tasks, right? There is a pretty healthy percent of AI adoption today, both in terms of pilots that are ongoing and in terms of having a deployment phase. It varies by the geo. But an AI is moving from a rule-based approach to RPA and natural language processing and deep neural networks, right? So NLP typical examples are SMBs during pandemic started to use a lot of chatbots and so on and so forth, right? So if history is any indication, we feel that AI adoption will grow faster within the SMB segment than in the enterprise segment. So the history means big data. It was supposed to be an enterprise play, but the SMB started to step forward first before big data started to kind of go away and analytics became, right? Digital transformation. Enterprises have woken up now, but digitalization or digital transformation within SMBs has already been a 7-year journey, right? So the short answer to your question is that AI is finding acceptance. It is first within the SMB segment, but it is first arriving as embedded within the solutions that they are using. And I gave you several different examples of that.
Subbu, you subscribe to that view? Are you seeing these kind of developments happening throughout the world? Because basically, when I'm looking at AI, AI is, I think I would subscribe to the point, or rather, Anurag has highlighted very aptly, basically, that it's not that companies look out for AI solutions. They would have looked out for an ERP or asked for an ERP or asked for a CRM, asked for BI, asked for KM or whatever it be. But they don't ask for AI. They asked, okay, can I solve a business issue out here?
So nobody sells technology, particularly to the SMBs and also to the enterprises. Nobody sells that. They sell solutions. So if it is an HR solution, a recruitment solution with an AI engine driving the solution, that's great. The SMB or the enterprise, and SMB particularly, doesn't really give a damn about technology. For him, it is the business and the efficacy of that solution to the business. That is the most critical thing, right? So to me, I mean, and you know, that's always been there. No matter what the catchwords have been, the businesses have sought by solutions. Many a time, the technology companies have sought to sell technology, and sometimes that is where the dissonance comes. Having said that, your earlier question was, you know, about this alliance of, you know, AI alliance on the World Economic Forum and all that stuff. You know, Anurag has been in this, you know, in the old war horse. He's been around for, you know, longer than I. See, these alliances have very to me it's a photo op, really. I mean, we had BSA, Business Software Alliance, you know, many years ago. It was supposed to be the next best thing after sliced bread. Nothing happened. It was supposed to stamp out piracy. It did. to me, these alliances only drive home the fact that all these companies perceive that they have the same problem. And they believe that getting together, they can try and find solutions to the problem. But let's face it, all these companies are competing with each other. Okay. So it'll be naive to believe that an alliance of this dramatic difference to the whole world. It will not. Is something important, and that it is something that we need to start peddling more and more as solutions. But purely as an alliance in terms of value that it's going to drive, I'm a skeptic, honestly.
So, so let me give an alternate view, right? Yes, uh, alliances sometimes don't work, but I think in the case of AI, it may be a very useful exercise, right? When these companies can share their learnings and expertise to say solve world hunger, deforestation, right? Or uh, um, fi- fires in the forest, right? Or look at wildlife extinction. You know, so when you start to look at those kind of things, or disease and water sanitation, those kind of things, if you start to pool your resources, the learnings, then I think these kind of alliances will start to make sense. And I think that will probably be the ultimate objective here.
Yeah, it makes a tremendous amount of sense because I think a lot of work done on GPT-3, for that matter of fact, which is the whole NLP kind of body, and
Yeah,
a lot of research, as you rightly said, during the pandemic also, when we a lot of data sharing had taken place, the data analytics that was used along with AI. So a lot of stuff has gone, and it's thanks to the alliances, and more importantly, your own point which you raised earlier, Anurag, about transparency in AI, ethical AI, explainable AI,
yeah,
whatever you want to call it. So there's
yeah,
a whole body of research that needs to be. So yes,
yeah,
we may have a lot of skepticism over the alliances, which is also warranted because
yeah,
history has clearly shown us that they didn't. But at least now, at least in these areas, they seem to be working and to the benefit
yeah,
of the entire body as such.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
let's also talk a little about Sridhar Vembu and I mean the Padma Shri, because I thought that was at least according to me, it was quite a big thing, and it was a fitting thing, both from the point of view that at for once I realized, you sort of feel happy when the award also gets a fitting person and the person
Yeah,
also gets a fitting award, kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And Subbu, Anurag, both of you know Sridhar Vembu better than me. So,
I was just delighted. I mean,
we are losing you a bit.
because he's done some outstanding work. He's walked the talk, and I think he's been able to create enormous amount of value. And I think it's very well deserved. I mean, it is certainly, he's one of those shining lights. I've always considered to be a guy who's done, followed his passion but created enormous value, especially to the hinterlands of India.
I think we're losing you, I think so, Subbu.
My connection has been very unstable today, so why don't you
Yeah,
guys just keep going on?
yeah, yeah. Can't hear you, basically. Yeah, I think Anurag, very importantly, I think both of us, when we were earlier also having this discussion, is that he's a very modest man, despite running almost like more than a 4,000 crore enterprise. He has got about 9,000 employees today. I remember interviewing him way back in 2014, and I wrote about it on a sister concern, CXO Today. And that you can see from the amount of response that that article got on LinkedIn, it went viral. It's for
Yeah.
the simple reason that this man has sort of, captured the hearts of people. They love him, they respect him, and he's a very modest guy. What I like about him, I remember I was sharing this with Anurag sometime back, that when I went to interview him, I was actually sitting in the corridor, squatting with a few of his colleagues, which typically is what, that's the way he operates. And you seldom see a CEO like that. And you know that he's not sort of, pretending to be that man. He's just that person.
Yeah. So I think, we have to think about it in a way that, yes, Zoho as an organization was founded, I think, way back in 1996.
19, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then it has been continuing on. It has been on a growth path, is not taken even a dollar of outside capital, right?
Yes.
And of late, over the last 2 years, Sridhar's philosophy has been how do we lift up the underprivileged people, right? And a key reason why he moved himself out from the center of Chennai to the outskirts, right? He lives there. He has started schools. He has taught the villagers how to grow their own garden, plant their own vegetables. And he teaches in the schools. He goes in a rickshaw. And I think the important point here is that, hey, one of the things which he says is that you know they have to be very disciplined, right, in terms of how do they grow the organization as well. And I think he's marrying the business with community and is doing that very effectively. So one of the points which he raised to me was that the global employee attrition rate is about 7.5%. In the rural areas, he has found it to be 1.5%.
Oh,
So when you see that, then you say, okay, what can I do more for the rural employees? Or what can I do more for the villages, right? And the way his philosophy also works is that within the organization itself, within the office, he has got 3 in-house doctors, right, to lower the cost of healthcare, right? And his point is about how do I avoid the insanity that is connected to competition, right? So he is working through all those points, and he's doing a lot of internal thinking and bringing them in the business aspect of it, and in the process really succeeding. And that makes all the difference, right?
and also, I think very interestingly, I remember, and he has not changed that pattern very much, is that he took students who were 12th standard pass and then taught them engineering with his own, with the money, funded them for their education, and then co-opted them in Zoho. So that was a very interesting part. And then many other tech companies also adopted a similar approach.
Yeah.
Second thing is also that culture is very important for him, which is one reason why he's not very high on acquisitions, because he feels that it will sort of destroy the culture within the organization. That he has not listed, and that he is completely bootstrapped a company without a single NAP as from investors is something that you already highlighted. So, I
Yeah.
mean, this is an exemplary made in India story, and that's why I called him a true ambassador of India without him actually even claiming that position or anybody wanting to give it. It's
Yes,
a very
that's
heartening
that's
kind
that,
of.
that is absolutely true. Yeah, yeah.
Subbu, you also know him quite well. Any other things that particularly striking? Okay, I think we have lost Subbu out there. Anurag, as far as AI adoption is concerned, any other trends that you're seeing because you handle this entire SL, forget AI adoption, even when you're talking about what are the kind of technology trends that you're seeing that are pertinent and very important for small and medium businesses out here in today's
So I think we have to look in terms of before the pandemic, after the pandemic, right? So it's very clear, right? So let's talk about post pandemic, right? So what we are seeing that the post pandemic has accelerated digital transformation. You know it, everybody knows it. It has been there is a lot of
Yeah.
media buzz already there, right? And every firm is on the path to change. So there are four components, right? One is hybrid IT or hybrid cloud, whatever you want to call it. There are two different things, but let's call it hybrid IT. The other one is this anywhere co-modal work. That is a trend that is there, right? Third is security, which is obviously important. It's always top of the mind, right? Then there is this edge computing, which is the next big thing, right? And lot of SMBs are innovating at the edge. Analytics is the fifth important thing which is going on. And underlying the enabling technology is the cloud, right? Cloud is not only an essential IT infrastructure for these SMBs, it is also the essential business infrastructure now. And all of these things that I talked about, the hybrid and anywhere co-modal work, security, edge analytics, and the digital transformation pieces of it are dependent upon cloud. So this is the trend we are seeing. But I think the important point here is let's not look at it from technology perspective, right? We should think about it. What's the business challenge, right? Or let's say, what are the challenges of the business executives and what are the challenges of the IT staff within these organizations, right? I think that is very important to consider. So the data really shows that the top five business challenges of these organizations are how to achieve cost efficiencies, how to initiate innovation, because innovation all of a sudden has become on top of the mind, right? How to enable operational excellence, how to empower organizational productivity. It's not about the individual anymore, it's the entire organization. How to drive business growth and ultimately customer intimacy. So these are the issues, the five big challenges that the SMB, whether you call it a small business executive or a mid-sized business executive, they are faced with, they are dealing with, right?
But Anurag,
And
these
that,
challenges haven't really changed over a period of time. I mean, even if I were to ask you this question about 5 years back or even 15 years back, I mean, these five points that you raised now were the challenges that probably all these companies faced even say a decade back. Is it that these challenges are sort of being being blown out of proportion because of the complexity within the IT frameworks? Is it that?
no, 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 no. I think the way you have to think about this is that the challenges were similar in the past, but they were very narrowly focused, right? So when you let's take an example, achieve cost efficiency, right? In the past, it was about how do I reduce my operating cost. So Reducing operating costs is one narrow aspect of it, right? But how do I achieve cost efficiencies end to end? So that becomes a different challenge, right? How to initiate innovation. Innovation was never on top of the mind. It was always about how can I introduce new products or new services in the marketplace because I need to compete better. But now it is talking about innovation. It's not about innovation at the product level or the service level. It's the end-to-end innovation, right? So that's where the things have changed, right? And the reason why things have changed is because technology is available to enable that, right? So, and that is the trend that we are seeing. And digital transformation is is that concept that enables all of these five different challenges.
Any thoughts on blockchain? Because that is also one of the, it's being touted as one of the critical components of this entire.
So blockchain has been there for a while. I mean, IBM was the one of the biggest
Yes.
spokes organization, if you will, talking about blockchain. And blockchain is being very effectively used within the small businesses. Only about 2 weeks ago, I was talking to some users of blockchain. This is like a jewelry manufacturing and exporting firm. They are using blockchain very effectively, right? Because they need to make sure that whatever they are producing is effectively stamped and go out, right? Or there is there is a art studio in New York that is using blockchain very effectively, right? Then there is a financial services firm that is saying, I need to track the transactions effectively. They are using blockchain, right? So again, we come back to the original example. So the short answer to your question is, if you talk to the SMBs and say, which are the technologies that will have the biggest impact on your business over the next 5 years, right? Let's not even talk about immediate 1 year or 2 year, right? What comes up? 5G comes up, artificial intelligence comes up, right? Blockchain comes up, robots come up, right? Then you have other,
Internet
development.
of Things, the IoT.
I mean, IoT is what is edge, and IoT is there and all that, but AR, VR comes up, right? So those are the kind of things that come up, right? But then obviously, what are the immediate ones is the cloud, the security, analytics, and so on and so forth, right? So so it's there, and we track this market very effectively across different geos. So there is a healthy intent to adopt this, right? But what is the constraint? The constraint is the suppliers, whether the IT supplier or the channel partner that serve that SMB community is unable to develop the skill sets in these technologies to be able to connect the outcome that the business is looking for with these types of solutions, right? And then we have obviously the constraints within the SMB themselves, right? Budget constraints, how to do more with less, you know, the IT skill sets, and so on and so forth, right? So there is a need in the market today to become a super consultant, not a typical trusted advisor, but a super consultant that is able to go and understand the end customer's business needs, design and architect a solution based on modern technology, deploy that solution, and then manage that solution.
But the interesting part is also, I mean, as we said, that necessity is the mother of invention. So probably because they are small, because they are budget constrained, maybe they are. Do you find that they are far more innovative than the other companies? For instance, in the fintech system in India, you have a lot of innovation coming from startups, coming from small businesses, and of course, the government push for the entire SMB and the startup sector, which has resulted in the United Payment Interface, the UPI, and which sort of help the entire fintech ecosystem become what it is today, world class, and showcasing.
Yeah, yes, it is true. Absolutely, you are 100% right. The SMBs usually respond to technology as a result of a business pain point, right? So let me give you an example of um, a brewery in Las Vegas, right? They deployed AI, they deployed IoT to make sure that they are filling the glass to the accurate level and deploying and delivering the latest brew that they have got, right? So they have got these kind of things, or the t-shirt manufacturing company, which is using a combination of IoT and blockchain and all to say, hey, you know what? I need my t-shirts to be tagged appropriately when it goes to the customer so that I can measure the return and I can track their flow and all that. So there are many different examples. So you talked about necessity is the mother of invention.
Invention.
Yeah, so the SMBs are thinking about it and saying, okay, how do I innovate? Like for example, when when indoor dining and outdoor dining stopped, right? How quickly how quickly they adopted cloud to have curbside delivery or deliver food at home, right? Those who had resisted in the past, or even those who were already there, doing that, how quickly they change it, right? So, so if a pain point is there, innovation is at its peak, and they be able to find a willing IT supplier, whether it be a startup or a large organization, to be able to deliver that, right? And you gave examples of the smaller firms. They are more agile, they are nimble, and they are able to deliver the needs of the end customer than the larger firms.
So, any final thoughts?
No, I think it's it's when you're small and you're more agile and you're more vulnerable. You always innovate a lot faster. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's been there, and that's true the world over. I mean, it's always been true. And if you looked at some of the finest innovations that have come, it always comes when the company is very small. Obviously, when you grow bigger, then you have your bureaucracy and your processes which impede innovation. But when you're small, you don't allow all of that. You just kind of power through and just do what it takes to do.
So, friends, as you may have noticed, it brings to mind the book by the famous economist E. A. Schumacher, who wrote "Small is Beautiful." I mean, that's a very that's a book that remains pertinent even in today's times, and we have seen the kind of innovation which Anurag, Subbu, and all of us have highlighted over a period of time. Sorry about this. So we have had some interesting discussions about data privacy, AI, and of course the whole SMB market and the tech adoption, hybrid IT, hybrid cloud, edge computing, etc. And we also spoke a little about Sridhar Vembu, who was awarded the Padma Shri, a very fitting award for the fitting person. So stay tuned and hope you can join us next week too for more exciting discussions. For now, we will take your leave. Have a lovely weekend. Like and subscribe this channel and share your insights. And if you want to be part of the show, please do not hesitate to drop us a line. Thank you. Thank you, Anurag. Thank you, Subbu.